Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 9-game NBA slate. Do keep in mind, on both DraftKings and FanDuel, this is 9 games and doesn't include the late game. Just keep that in your mind here. With that said, we do have a pretty interesting slate and a bunch of injuries. I will look at the FanDuel slate at the end of the video, so do keep that in mind too. So let's go and get in this injury report. For the Detroit Pistons, Stewart is out. For the Cavaliers, Allen and Garland are questionable, and Thompson is out. For the Clippers, Zubac remains out. For the Wizards, Shamet is out. For the Bulls, Levine and Williams are out. For the Hornets, Ball is doubtful, and Williams, Hayward, and Lowry are out. For the Heat, Robinson is out. For the Pelicans, Jones is questionable. For the Rockets, Eason is out. For the Mavericks, Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Lively, Jones, and Exum are all out. For the Timberwolves, Conley is questionable. For the Magic, Harris is out. For the Spurs, Keldon Johnson and Collins are both questionable. For the Nuggets, Joker is questionable. For the Thunder, Shea Alexander, Holmgren, and Dort are questionable. And Jalen Williams, the power forward, is out. That's Jalen, not Lyen. Looking at the Suns, Allen is questionable. And for the Nets, Sharp and Dorian Finney-Smith are out. So we do have a lot of injuries on the slate. At this point, we have two really good core plays in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jaden Hardy, but with some of these other injuries, we could definitely open up some more, especially if Shea Alexander and Holmgren were ruled out, or if Joker was ruled out. So we will have to wait and see on those injuries. But for now, we're going to assume that those guys play because they are on the better side of questionable, at least it appears. As for the Cavaliers, Allen was literally just added to the injury report. It looks like he might be sick, so that is a concern here. But we'll get into that as we go. So we'll start by talking about Tim Hardaway Jr. He always gets a boost when Doncic or Kyrie is out, and today both of them are out. He's going to have all the usage he can handle. He definitely has that 50 fantasy point upside that he has flexed before in this type of situation. So obviously this game definitely has a low total for this slate, but I expect him to have a big game as a result of all the injury situation there. Even though Minnesota can be pretty tough defensively, it's not going to matter in this game. He's going to get a ton of opportunity. Jaden Hardy's also going to get a lot of opportunity in this game. It looks like he should get a more uh, higher minute total. Now he does have a low floor, but I do think he's going to have a pretty good ceiling today and should get some assist up opportunities, which he's really had some hits and misses throughout the season. But this is a good matchup where he should go get 30 minutes and have some potential on the slate. Obviously, with Dallas, there's some other options available too. I'm just going to talk about those guys real quick before I get into the rest of the good plays. Now, these guys are squarely kind of GPP Hail Mary plays. Josh Green, Grant Williams, and Dwight Powell all have some utility today. Look at all these questionable and out tags. But Exum and Jones are both downgraded recently. So looking at the other plays, though, we have on the slate, we're going to look at Wimby here for the Spurs. Now, he definitely carries some risk today. He's a little pricey, but he's played pretty well lately, and he has some nice potential in this game. He's a little bit cheaper than FanDuel, too, so he definitely has a lot of potential on DraftKings here, and the matchup is pretty decent for this one. Looking at Sengun for the Rockets, he definitely has some ups and downs throughout the year, but he's playing pretty well right now. I do think that he does carry a little bit of risk, but he's still cheap enough, even though his prices come up some. He's still cheap enough that he has some upside in this matchup, even though it is a tougher matchup for him. I do like his potential, though, on the slate, and Houston looks pretty decent today, despite it being kind of a tight game. He has a high total, which definitely benefits us fantasy-wise. Looking at Kawhi Leonard, uh, Leonard has played very well in 6 of the last 9 games where he's been over 45 fantasy points. His price has come down a little bit, which is going to give him some utility here today. He definitely carries some risk and squarely a GPP play, but he definitely has the minutes and upside, especially with Zubac out. He and James Harden definitely have the most upside on this team right now. Miles Bridges for Charlotte is in play. He looks like he's probable right now, so he should be playing. He's going to have a ton of usage if Ball remains out, who is doubtful. And as the last few games, you can see he's been over 49 fantasy points in 2 straight. He's had some really big games against Chicago this season as well, averaging at 40 fantasy points. So I think he's in a really good spot here. He's definitely a player I consider to make a core play, but with his probable tag, I did hold off, and especially because Chicago-Charlotte game is the lowest scoring game on the slate. However, they have a lot of guys that are priced very fairly on this one. Looking at Carl Towns for Minnesota, he has played pretty well lately, and he definitely draws some nice upside in this matchup. His price is still at right at $8,000. I actually expect it to be more, but with all the guys out for Dallas, he should have a lot of opportunity to do well here. He's been kind of inconsistent against Dallas this season, but this game should have some potential for him as the defense is going to be somewhat limited against him, and he definitely has the most upside of anybody on this team right now. DeMar DeRozan has played pretty solid lately. His price is stable still, though it has come up a couple $100. With Levine out, he's getting a lot of usage, and he's been getting at least around 39 fantasy points most games. Obviously, I'd like him to get over 45 on this one at this price, but he definitely has some potential to do that today. At a faster paced game, uh, where they're expected to win, that definitely gives some potential. I shouldn't say faster pace because it's one of the lower scoring games on the slate, but neither one of these teams play a ton of defense. Looking at Jarrett Allen, now he is now questionable because it looks like he has an illness, and that is a concern here. But unless he doesn't play, he looks like a really solid option. In fact, in 13 straight games, he's been over 37 fantasy points, which is right about what he needs to 5x here. And he has had some big games as well, so he's definitely a quality player and option on the slate, especially in a plus matchup if he can get in and play today. But we'll have to wait and see on that. He was very close to being a core play if he wasn't sick. Looking at Nikola Vucevic, now Vucevic has not really flexed the high upside that we'd like from him typically. He has a safe floor, but he's been over 30 fantasy points most games. His price is good, and it's come down a lot as a result of his play to average him out. But I still wish he was having more of these big 50 fantasy point games that he does have occasionally when he gets double digit rebounds. He's definitely more than capable of that, and he's getting plenty of minutes. So I do think he's got a lot of potential to do that here against Charlotte. He's one of the worst teams against big guys, and that definitely gives him some potential today. Looking at Van Vliet, oopsie, for Houston, he's also in play for Houston. He tends to be kind of streaky, but he's been playing up and down, and right now this matchup looks favorable for him, so he's definitely worth a look, though he is squarely a GPP play on this one. Jimmy Butler has played very well the last couple games. He has some potential in this one as his price is still cheap. It's down from where it has been, but as long as his minutes stay up and his usage starts to rise, and he's getting more opportunity, yeah, more rebounds and assists, then his fantasy output goes up. He's definitely a risky play. It is a plus matchup, but it is risky as he's not been particularly great throughout the season so far, and he is kind of conserving for the playoffs. Looking at Rudy Gobert for Minnesota, Gobert, excuse me, he's getting a lot of minutes. He does tend to be inconsistent, but his price has come down some, and he's got a favorable matchup here against a team that's going to be missing a lot of guys, so he definitely has some upside in this matchup. Looking at Tyler Hero, he's finally back at playing a full complement of minutes. Took him a while to really get back in the groove, but now that he is, his price is pretty low here, and he's actually been over 30 fantasy points in two out of the last three, excuse me, and technically three of the last four. But his price is low enough that he has some utility on the slate, though he is a GPP play. This is a fast-paced matchup for Miami. In fact, it's pretty odd to see Miami in one of the fastest-paced games of the slate, considering the fact that they're usually one of the slowest teams in the NBA. So I do like their potential today. Looking at Brooke Lopez here from Milwaukee, I was a little surprised to find him. Sorry, what am I doing? Milwaukee is not on this slate. Um, Sorry about that. Looking at PJ Washington, that's what I meant to do. PJ is available here for Charlotte. He's finally back from his injuries last few games. He looks like he's playing pretty good right now. And even though he does have a lower floor than I like, his ceiling is pretty high and his price is still pretty solid. So he's definitely worth a look today. Nick Richards is in a kind of a tough spot as his price is a little bit too high, but he definitely has that upside as he's had some decent games lately. Though I do think there's a little concern here against Vucevic that he could have a rough game, but honestly, Chicago hadn't played a ton of defense against big guys, so he definitely has some potential today. Desanmu from Chicago has been sneaky good lately, getting over 30 minutes in quite a few games. in a row, and his price is still cheap. Yesterday, he was a sneaky play that I talked about in the video, and he did very well. I look for him to potentially have another decent game today, though he does carry a little bit more risk today. Even though the matchup is slightly better, he's not as safe as I think he was yesterday. But he's definitely worth a look just the same. Looking at Cody Martin for Charlotte, he's a nice value play today. He's playing quite a bit of minutes likely with the injury situation there, though he does have that low floor. If he looks like he's going to get over 30 minutes, he'll definitely have a lot of potential in a plus matchup here. And then finally, Grant Williams from Dallas. He's a very high risk play as he has extremely low floor. He should get plenty of minutes with all the injuries to the Mavericks, but he definitely has a high ceiling and a low floor. He is nice and cheap, so that helps. But you do have to deal with under 10 fantasy point games occasionally with him, and that is a concern on the slate. So with that said, that is the DraftKings portion of the video. I am going to switch over to FanDuel here. Now I'm not going to highlight the players because the way FanDuel works is a little bit more funky here, but I will showcase the options here that are different than DraftKings. Looking at our point guards, we do have a kind of rough position at point guard. I think Kobe White and Donovan Mitchell are the top plays. AU Adamasu for Chicago also has some utility, though he's a little bit more expensive, about $1,000 more expensive than on DraftKings, so that is a concern there. Donovan Mitchell may be the safest play at this position, though he's fairly expensive, and Kobe White does seem a little bit overpriced. James Harden also has some utility at point guard here too, but he does feel overpriced as well. Looking at the shooting guards, this is probably one of my favorite positions on this slate on FanDuel with Jaden Hardy and Tim Hardaway Jr. Now Hardy is a lot more expensive on FanDuel, so he's not a auto play like Tim Hardaway Jr. is, which is very similarly priced. Hardaway is the core play for FanDuel, so he's definitely a good spot here. I don't think that Hardy's a must play, but he's definitely in play with, especially at the price point. Devin Booker is priced pretty fairly on FanDuel and has played pretty well, and he's definitely the best expensive player at shooting guard. You can also put Tim Hardaway Jr. in small forward if you want. Josh Green is also available at shooting guard for Dallas, and he's a good contrarian option. He's a little bit cheaper than Hardy too on FanDuel, whereas on DraftKings Hardy's a little bit cheaper than Green. Looking at our small forward positions, DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard both have good upside here, and they've both been pretty good in the last few games for their prices here, though they are a little bit riskier as they're slightly more expensive than DraftKings. They definitely have a little bit more upside on FanDuel, those two. Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller both have some utility from Charlotte. With Ball unlikely to play, Miles Bridges definitely looks like a good play, though he is stuck only playing small forward here, so do keep that in mind. Along with DeRozan, those two guys might be your favorite plays for the slate, whereas Kawhi Leonard can play power forward if you want. And then also Franz Wagner, he can also play small forward or power forward. He's a little bit cheaper than the other guys I've mentioned, outside of Brandon Miller at least, and he has some full minute upside here in this matchup. Now, he is a GPP play, much like Brandon Miller, who has a low floor for Charlotte, and he's a little bit overpriced, but he's definitely capable. Looking at the power forward slot, there's a couple power forwards that you can move from small forward into power forward, which is definitely going to help with this position. There's a lot to mix and match between the three positions of small forward, power forward, and center on FanDuel. That said, that might be the way to go today, as PJ Washington is probably the best play at power forward, considering outside of the guys I've already mentioned at small forward at least. When it comes to his price and everything, he's nice and cheap here. He is risky, but he's overpriced. He does have some upside in the matchup, though. Jarrett Allen is also a great option here. However, he is questionable. He is a little bit more expensive than DraftKings, but he definitely has some utility here. Looking at the center position, those guys can also play center, so you don't necessarily have to go with a big guy that's all exclusive to center today. But Vucevic and Sengun both have utility, though Vucevic definitely carries a little bit of risk as he's been underperforming, but he's definitely capable on the slate in a plus matchup. And then Sengun is an expensive play, but he definitely has a slight overprice, but he's definitely capable. With that said, guys, if I'm looking at the two slates, DraftKings and FanDuel, I think DraftKings is a lot better today. I think the value is a lot better than FanDuel. FanDuel definitely has some utility today because some of the guys that aren't as cheap on DraftKings are better plays on FanDuel. However, the mid-range plays and the upper level plays are a little bit pricey on FanDuel compared to DraftKings, so that's kind of the way I look at it. I will be playing DraftKings mostly only today, but I'm going to try to do this with FanDuel more and more. I just haven't had the time lately, but hopefully I can continue to do this more. I hope you guys liked the video, and thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.